Welcome to the 12 Report. These are the headlines. NIMET predicts thunderstorms, rain, flash floods nationwide. More reactions trail Niger governor's shutdown of Baghdadi Radio as Amnesty International, NUJ fume. Now, over 70 dead after migrants' boat sinks off Yemen. We've got the details shortly. I'm Blessings Mosugu, and now to the stories. This week, Nigeria will see lots of rain and thunderstorms from Monday to Wednesday, according to the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. Now, in the north, places like Adamawa, Taraba, and Sokoto will have thunderstorms in the mornings and evenings, with warnings of flooding in Adamawa, Taraba, and Bauchi State. In the middle of the country, areas like Benue, the Federal Capital Territory, and Niger will experience light rain on and off. In the south, states like Lagos, Rivers, and Akwa Ibom will have cloudy skies with some light rain. Flood risks are high in Oyo, Ogun, Edo, Delta, Anambra, Bayelsa, and Cross River. Now, people are advised to avoid traveling during heavy rain and for flood-prone areas to prepare immediately to stay safe. We're still talking about the flooding. Residents of Agungi in the Lekki axis of Lagos on Monday woke up to heavy flooding caused by persistent rain, which has been falling for hours since last night. The area is one of the flood-prone regions in the Lekki axis, witnessing such heavy flooding during the rainy season every year. Meanwhile, on the 10th day of September year 2024, the Alau Dam, situated on the Ngada River near Maiduguri, collapsed after heavy rains. This triggered floods that submerged roughly 70% of Maiduguri, claiming at least 150 lives and displacing thousands of families. News Central's Modu Kirawa assesses the flood situation in Borno State, challenges, and the plans by the government to review its master plan. We now have joining us News Central's lead correspondent, Bernard Akede, who joins us from Lekki on the island part of Lagos. We also have joining us Igbalani Omoni from the mainland in Lagos, and we also have Umoru Kirawa from Maiduguri in Borno, also on the news. Ni Omoni is right here with us. Ni, thank you for joining us. I mean, it's a rainy morning, and unfortunately, some areas have now been flooded. Ni, can you give us an update? I understand that you are in the mainland axis of Lagos State. What is the update in the area you're in right now?
Thank you, Blessings. We are now at PWD. It's a major spot along the Agege-Oshodi expressway, if I can call it that way. And if we were here 2-3 hours before now, we would have seen probably more traffic behind me, because this is the major way, and we would have seen this particular spot I am, which is the PWD, a connecting road that links back to the airport. We'll have seen it totally blocked because of the rains and what the level of water you would have found at this particular spot. This is one of the very few places we've still seen across mainland that has puddles of water still left that has not receded. And that's why we chose this particular spot. Even now, you can see a lot of vehicles slowing down just to pass through this place. 2-3 hours before now, this would have been a major traffic situation. In fact, from the people we spoke to earlier that have been here before now, passing through this area, some of them have had to drop and probably trekked this place through. But choosing this location is very, very important. While we understand that flooding might have been happening across Lagos due to the heavy rainfall, and of course as predicted by NIMET, on the mainland here, what we have is mostly flash flood, which means just immediately after the rain, the water level just rises up, fills up some smaller areas, and of course recedes just a few minutes or a few hours after. And that's why we don't have so much flooding across the mainland here, where we would have seen normally that it will have been flooded. But for now, you can see behind me, the water has receded. Traffic situation has gotten really better, unlike other locations which maybe the topography of the area might not really respond well to rainfall. But on this major axis and some places we visited this morning, like Agege, like Ikeja, that we've also been to, the water has receded and the traffic situation has gone back to normal. We're hoping that it remains that way because the NIMET also predicted that there's going to be cloudy skies and light rains across the day. So, of course, all those damaged part of the roads where vehicles could easily see would actually now be filled with puddles of water. And, of course, these vehicles, road users, will have to slow down before they can navigate this area. It is also important to state and note that it's because the rush hour is over. By 2, 3, 4, when the rush hour is back, I'm sure we're going to experience so much more traffic here than they experience in the morning.
All right, Niomani, thank you so much. I mean, as we can see on the screen, on the contrary, Bernard is in the Lekki axis of Lagos State, and there seems to be much more water than expected. Bernard, what's the situation where you are right now? I can see so much water behind you. What's happening there with the flood?
All right, thank you for having me, Blessings. Like you clearly stated, contrary to Neil's situation, there is a lot of water in my area here where I'm standing. This is Agungi axis of Lekki, and for those who know, Agungi is synonymous with flooding almost every rainy season of the year. And then we did experience a lot of rain from about 1 a.m. Early this morning up until about 8 a.m. Still this morning. And as you can see around me, this is the resultant effect of what you've seen. I'll swing around so you can see not just this part of the road, but everywhere, even leading to the other part of Agungi Road, all as far as the eyes can see. Sadly, this is what residents of Agungi, experience every year, every rainy season. You also may have noticed that no vehicle has passed since we've been on this shot, probably just one or two maybe. By vehicle, I mean cars, Okadas, commercial motorcycles, or even keke tricycles. So first of all, it's difficult for people to leave their houses. It's difficult for people to come in to the area. It pretty much is a challenge. You could almost call it a disaster. Nii was also talking about what NIMET mentioned in the news, like you equally stated. This could be attributed to the fact that we're probably going to be having heavy rainfall or heavy downpour, like what we saw between last night and this morning. And of course, the topography of the region. This is the island region. So, there are issues with the sea level. And of course, there are also issues with drainage in areas like this particular one. So where the drainage is not proper, is not well dug or easily accessible or completely blocked in some cases, be sure that you would have issues like this one.
All right, Bernard, thank you. I mean, that was spot on because I was going to ask what the issues are that would make the Lekki axis of Lagos have more water than every other area. But thanks for giving us those the details. We will now be going to Maiduguri in Borno State, where we have Umoru Kirawa, who would also be giving us the update on the flood situation over there in Borno State. Kirawa, thank you for joining us, and good afternoon. What is the situation over there? We've heard from Nii on the mainland axis of Lagos. We've also heard from Bernard in the Lekki axis. What's happening in Borno State with the flood situation? Are you in any flooded area or flood-prone area?
Well, we are going through seeing different locations. For now, the areas where it has been flooded, it's largely due to the heavy downpour and, of course, the blocked riverways, that's drainage system across different parts of the state. But for now, the water is receding in virtually all communities that we were able to visit recently, which were flooded. People had to leave their homes, people had to park, people had to depend largely on others. Some people have to sleep on the highway. But for now, the situation is relatively calm as people are going back to their houses because the water is going back. But largely, the problem is the issue of the drainage system, which we spoke with the governor yesterday, the state governor, Professor Babagana Umar Azulam, where he said that the state government will review the state master plan, looking at the drainage system and, of course, even talking about the behavioral change, because largely where there are drainage systems, people tend to dump refuse into the gutter instead of some areas where bins have been provided. But there are some areas in which they do not even have the bins, and the state governor said such provisions will be made. But the people have been complaining largely, particularly in areas like Bulunkutu, Abuja, where they said the size of the drainage system too, really, the government really needs to consider it because the size is not that large. And the water, when it comes, it overflows the drainage system and enters into the houses. And most importantly, connecting the drainage system is very important. And when I spoke with experts, they say it's not only about connecting the drainage system, but also making it in a slopy manner, whereby water can really flow and then it should be connected to a river channel. And if need be it, the government should embark on the construction of river basins and channels that are very big that will carry the flood into the river.
Tomorrow, thank you for the update. I mean, I was again going to ask what the government plan is regarding all of this, but thanks for the update. We've heard from Bernard in the Lekki region of Lagos. We've also heard from Niyo Moni on the mainland, and of course, Umori Kirawa from Borno State in Maiduguri, to be precise. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for bringing us the update on the flooding situation across Nigeria, and definitely we'll circle back to see what the updates are subsequently. Thank you. Now, it's a normal duty day for nurses working at the Federal Medical Center in Umuahia and Abyan Specialist Hospital. The nurses had joined their counterparts across the country in a few-day strike over unmet demands. Though the nurses would not grant interviews, they were clearly seen attending to patients at the Abyan State Specialist Hospital in Umuahia. Now, some relatives of patients shared their experience for the day they were off duty.
Not good. In the ward we are, during that strike, 4 patients died. They died out of negligence, because I know if they are not on strike, maybe they would have gotten help. They wouldn't have, died. It was not easy. A lot of life were lost just because of those few days strike. If the government know anything they can do to make sure there will not be reoccurrence of this kind of situation, I think they should do it. It wasn't easy at all. I have to become a nurse and a doctor for my brother that is here. He had wounds. There was nobody to attend to his wound. It was not funny at all. It was not funny. But thank God they have finally called a strike off. At least.
Quite a sad situation considering what patients went through during the strike. But we've got more updates after the break. We'll go on a short break. It's the 12th report. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. It's still the 12th report, and we're still bringing updates on the nurses' strike situation. Even though it's been suspended for now, we had people talk about the difficulty that they faced while the strike was on. And we have News Central's correspondent Chime Ogele, who's currently on standby to give us updates on the development. Chime Ogele, thank you so much for joining us. What is the update now? I mean, before the break, we saw some clips about people who were commenting or lamenting about the situation when the nurses were on strike. A mother said she had to play doctor and nurse to a relative who was sick. What is the situation now with the strike? Has it been called off? Has it only been suspended? What's the government saying? What are the nurses saying?
Thank you very much. So far, the strike has just been suspended and not called off because from the interaction I've had with the director of the nursing services, if the government reneges once again from its agreement with the nurses, there's the tendency that they may resume the strike. But so far, the nurses have. I am currently at the Abyan Specialist Hospital here in Umuahia, and the nurses are at their various stations, serving the patients and attending to the needs of the patients and their families.
So, I mean, we can clearly see the damage that has been done, within those few hours or days that the strike was on. You are on ground there right now. How would you say that the nurses' strike has affected patient care beyond what we saw before the break how has it also affected the hospital services at the Federal Medical Center in Umuahia and Abia State Specialist Hospital?
Well, it was quite bad because we had a situation whereby the woman who sustained injury from the building collapse last week had to be evicted from the hospital just because nobody was going to attend to her if she continued to stay in the hospital. So that is just one of the cases, that people experience. At the specialist hospital, there was absolutely no one attending to anybody. In fact, the patients all left. But this morning, there's a beehive of activities. We have lots of patients coming in and swarming around the hospital. At the Federal Medical Center, the situation was even worse because that is where you have more of the patients. A lot of people stayed without anyone attending to them. Even when you had the doctors around, they couldn't do much as was expected of the nurses.
So while you were there, or I mean, you're still there, but have you observed
that whatever will lead to this kind of situation should be averted?
Right. All right, if you can hear me, Chinwe, have you observed any changes in hospital staffing or, shift or workflows since the strike began?
Well, they just today ago. So they've resumed, and I've seen that everybody who is supposed to be at work, that's with regards to the nurses, is at work and attending to patients. So there's nothing like anybody taking anybody's shift or doing extra job because some people are absent. They are all on their duty post, attending to patients.
All right, Chime Ogele, thank you so much for bringing us the update on the nurses' strike situation in Umuahia. We'll definitely circle back to see what the update is when the nurses have fully resumed and how they're taking on their shifts going forward. Thank you. Now, if you have been struggling to make a simple phone call or use your mobile data lately, you're not alone. In Abuja, residents are dealing with frustratingly poor network service, calls dropping mid-conversations, apps refusing to load, and entire areas going without signal for hours. What's making it worse for many is the fact that back in January, mobile operators increased the cost of data and voice calls, promising improved service. But months later, not much has changed except the frustration. Well, our correspondent, Mayor Abubakar, is standing by now to speak to us on this development. Mayor, I'm sure that you have also personally had some disruptions to your network service. Can you describe the current state of, data usage, network service in Abuja where you are?
Good afternoon, Blessing. Yes, indeed. I would start by saying that yesterday, my husband was truly frustrated because he was having a meeting and he kept getting locked out. He kept complaining. He was frustrated. Now, as much as that situation was frustrating, it was also funny to me because I was already working on the stories. The FCT, the nation's capital has become really, really bad in terms of the network signals. Sometimes people will tell you for a particular network provider that it goes over 2 days without network. I've called people even outside Abuja, but then for the people in the FCT, it is really alarming, really frustrating. Sometimes you'll be in a meeting. I recall that for months now, sometimes even if I joined live like this to talk to, to share reports on what is going on around me with our viewers, there is always a network situation. Sometimes it cracks, you're frustrated, you're on call, it drops, you have to call back again. So situations like this have been affecting businesses, personal lives. Students have also made a lot of complaints. But the most frustrating part, which the people I was able to speak with emphasized, was the fact that there was an increase in tariff. And we recall earlier, I think late December to earlier January this year, where people were, the National Assembly rather were pushing, saying that they've spoken to these network providers and they said due to inflation and other situations, they need to increase the tariff, which of course went years without. So Nigerians were promised, by the legislators that if at all this happened, there's going to be a transformation. But then nothing has been done so far. I've been trying all efforts to reach the NCC, and I'm going to keep pushing in order to, bring this report forward. But then from their website, there is one thing that I've noticed that they tend to put as major reason why the network has been failing, which is the fact that with the road construction ongoing, it tends to affect the cables. Now, this was something I know around March they spoke about, saying that this is what is the cause. But from now, we still don't have synergy between the Ministry of Works and the NCC, talking about the regulation body for their networks in order to make sure that Nigerians at least get what their money worth. So this is currently the situation. The frustration is loud. It's been going on for over 2 years now, and it keeps getting worse.
So, I mean, recently I was speaking with my mom in Lokoja, Kogi State, and I understand for a fact that they are also going through the same thing. So how widespread are these network disruptions? Because clearly it's not just in the FCT. There are certain other areas affected. What other areas are we looking at? And are there areas more affected than the others?
Yeah, I will tell you that as much as I sampled the FCT, because I was able to talk to them to get them on camera, there were a lot of people. I know that I even posted it on my WhatsApp status just to get people's opinion from outside Abuja. And yes, there was a lot. Kogi is one of them. Someone from Kaduna pointed out that frustration. Someone in Zamfara also pointed out that frustration. Someone said they say they live in Calabar and it also happens like that. So yes, it is nationwide spread. This situation, the annoying thing or the frustrating thing for Nigerians is that the NCC are a bit quiet on this blessing. Now, way back, we tend to see NCC signing this network provider saying, okay, you haven't done this. This has been going on. So this is the fine you get. But then for a year plus now, nothing has been done. NCC has not come out to explain. Apart from that network, the road situation that they posted on their website, nothing else is done. And like I said, I've been finding it difficult a bit reaching out to them, where they've just been tossing me here and there. But of course, I will push. If they don't, then from front of their office, I will do something to showcase that we have tried all our efforts, because News Central has been pushing to get a balanced report. But yes, it is not just the FCT. We just sampled the FCT, but frustration are alarming, and it's loud from every corner of the country.
All right, Sumaya Abubakar, thank you for bringing us the updates. And definitely News Central is committed to getting to the bottom of this. I do understand that we can also try to reach out to some of the telcos to understand exactly what's happening, with the network disruptions. And I'm sure that the viewer now understands why they've been experiencing disruptions in that area of the country. Thank you so much for joining us once again. It's still the 12 reports. We'll go on another short break. And when we come back, we've got more stories for you. So reports. Let's dive into a bit of sports victory now. We've been seeing a lot of that lately. Now, Nigeria's senior women's basketball team, the Tigress, is expected to arrive in the nation's capital, Abuja, today. The champions, who stunned their opponents in the final of the 2025 Afro-Basket tournament with a 78-64 win, are scheduled to touch down at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport any moment from now, following their departure from Abyan. Well, News Central's Joshua Imarai joins us now for more on this. Joshua, thank you for joining us. Yet another win we're celebrating. When are we expecting the team to arrive Nigeria?
Well, good afternoon to you, Blessed. Thank you for having me on the news on this hour. Well, I am currently live at private terminal of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport here in Abuja. And any moment from now, the Tigers will walk out from that particular door to this area. But what we are seeing currently is not the situation we experienced during the reception of the Super Falcons. Earlier last week, this place was populated with spectators and what we shall like who arrived in this particular place to welcome the Super Falcons. But this is not the case currently here at the private terminal of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. Once you can see, the people you are seeing on the background here are some of my fellow reporters and cameramen who are on standby here awaiting the Tigress, expecting them to come through from those doors. So this reception we had last week for the Super Falcons is not what we are seeing here for the Tigress. But of course, we are expecting them to touch down now. We can't cleanse our hands on the time, but we know they are en route from Abyan to Nigeria as we currently speak.
All right, Joshua, I mean, the difference in the reception is a conversation for another time because I'm very invested in understanding why there is that disparity. But in the meantime, what's next for the Tigress when they arrive? Are there any scheduled visits, media rounds? Is there anything on their itinerary that we should know about?
Of course, of course. Once the Tigress touch down Nigeria, they're expected to make their way to the presidential villa, where the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is expecting them to lead them a rousing welcome. But the victory will end in Abidjan at the end of the AfroBasket tournament. Of course, we are expecting a round of promises, just like the President did to the Super Falcons, where he awarded them $100,000 and some gifts in like so. So we are expecting the President to do the same to the Tigress. But however, we are unsure what the President has in store for these particular people who have won the title for seventh time overall and fifth time consecutively. So we are expecting them to touch down the presidential villa upon their arrival into Nigeria.
All right, Joshua Marari, thank you so much for bringing us the update from the airport. And we're definitely looking forward to seeing how the D-Tigress are welcomed back into Nigeria, looking at the win that they've brought to Nigeria once again. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
All right, it's still the 12 reports. When we come back, we take a look at press freedom and the level at which it's been handled, especially with the next story. It's still the 12 report. Do stay with us. It's still the 12 reports. Now, reactions have continued to trail the shutdown of Badegi Radio 90.1 FM in Minna, Niger State, following the directive by Governor Mohamed Bago, who accused the station of inciting violence and revoked its license. Now, Amnesty International, journalists, and the Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, have all condemned the governor's action as a blatant abuse of power and a dangerous attack on press freedom. Amnesty International described the closure as unjustifiable and urged the governor to withdraw the order immediately, noting that under Nigerian law, only the National Broadcasting Commission has the authority to revoke broadcast licenses. Now, critics argue, though, that the shutdown is a misguided attempt to silence critical voices and worsening insecurity in the state, highlighting a worrying pattern of media repression under Governor Bago's administration. Well, it's not about to be a monologue, so joining us to discuss more on this is a journalist and media career development specialist, Lekan Otufodunri. He is the Executive Director, Media Career Development Network. Thank you so much, Mr. Otufodunri.
It's my pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you join us. Now, we're still talking press freedom and democracy in 2025. This is a topic that we're hoping would have been, settled already. The media, of course, we know is the conduit between the government and the people, and so they have every right to show the people what's happening in the country and in governance. So with the directive by the governor, would you say that this is an attempt to challenge the principles of media freedom and, of course, in general, democracy in Nigeria?
Well, I think the press organizations that have responded couldn't have put it better when they say it's an abuse of power. Under democracy, there is separation of powers. So there's executive, there's legislature, and everything else. So the media, like we say, is the fourth estate of the realm. And we have our role cut out for us in the Constitution to hold government accountable and every other authority. So you can't revoke a license you didn't issue. So there's no way the governor can revoke that license. As I was coming this morning, I got across to some journalists right there in Minna, and they confirmed that the station is broadcasting as we speak, apparently based on all this. But although the state government, the executive council is meeting, and they're likely to make whatever pronouncements, there is a demolition order supposedly hanging on the station by the development authority, where it could seem as if it has no connection, because where they have the right to do, but coming at almost the same time, there's reason to suspect that this is an abuse of power, this is an attempt to muzzle voices of dissent and allow people to share their opinion about what the government is doing.
So as you said, you cannot revoke a license that you didn't issue.
Yes.
As a broadcast journalist, I know that the NBC is the only body that can revoke a license, and that depends heavily on the offense that has been committed. So what are the legal limits of a state governor's authority? Because this looks a lot like an attempt at micromanagement. If I mean, for lack of better words, there's a worse word to use, So what are the legal limits over media organizations, and how would we say that this directive violates, once again, Nigerian media laws?
Well, the Minister of Information has come out to say that the governor does not have the power to revoke the license. He had said that. He's been quoted to have said that, and that is the right position. Because, like I said, I mean, every other station that is operating anywhere in the country, the NBC issued that license, they can revoke it, they can suspend them, they can fine them. So the law is very, very clear. Like you mentioned in your analysis, the governor seems to have a track record of not being comfortable with people, and to think that there are issues in the state. So you have banditry, you have all kinds of things that are troubling. Ordinarily, what you expect is that if he feels bad about what they are doing, he should report them to the appropriate authority. And even if he's not okay with that, he can actually sue them. So what we are saying that in a democratic administration, we need to follow the rule of law. And it's bad that the governor is showing bad example, because now he has announced the revocation, but he has been overruled. I don't think that is good for his own image. But I don't think he should do that.
But do you say that this is a strategic move? Because, I mean, even a layman will know that his allegations and his actions do not necessarily hold water. So can we say that this is an attempt at stifling the press once again?
Well, generally, there is a shrinking civic space for the media and civil society. This is one of the manifestations of those shrinking spaces, where we are under a democracy and we are not enjoying those kind of a thing. The last time I heard what he said was under the military regime. I happen to have worked in the Punch newspaper. At a point in time, Punch, Guardian, Concord were shut for almost a year. But we were, quote unquote, we knew we were dealing with a military government. Even that, it was challenged. So I don't see how he can get away with this. It's clearly an attempt by him to stifle those kind of voices that he's not comfortable with. And like we have said, there are channels for redressing whatever you are not comfortable with.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Lekan Otufodunri, for brilliantly discussing this topic. And we're hoping that this is not going to be a continued conversation as to how the media is being stifled, because the media is, like you said, the fourth estate of the realm. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
An absolute pleasure. That fewer than 3 in 100 citizens earn enough to survive the rising cost of living. It adds that only 2.4% of the population earns 200,000 naira or more monthly, barely enough to cover food, housing, and transport. Meanwhile, Nigeria's diaspora quietly props up the economy with over $20 billion in remittances yearly. Nigeria and other African nations must rethink governance or risk collapse under growing inequality and unchecked political entitlement. Well, we have joining us now live Segun Shokpiton, Principal Partner, Woodridge and Scott Consulting, who joins us to discuss this. Segun Shokpiton, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, blessing.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you join us as well. Now, a quick question. Is Nigeria's political class out of touch with the realities of the working class and business environment? Based on that report, we're seeing that barely few people in Nigeria, a few percentage, earn above 200,000 naira, which is somewhat an insult to the population. So are we losing touch with the actual reality of the citizens?
Yeah, absolutely, blessings. The reality of our existence as a country is that by virtue of the political structure of the country, the people that end up, let me use the word leading the country, tend to be people who, over the course of their careers, may not necessarily have gone through, the rigors of development and all of that. Unlike what you have in other parts of the country where before you go into public office, you've succeeded in private venture in some way or the other. That's not necessarily the case here. And what you find is that people get into public office by some means or the other, and they are completely insulated, completely detached from the reality of the ordinary Nigerian. And you hear it when they speak, you hear it in the arrogance with which they relate with citizens, you hear it in how unrealistic they are when they speak about the problems and the travails of the ordinary Nigerian. So what you speak about, I think, is a self-evident truth that most Nigerians know and relate with on a day-to-day basis. And that perhaps is what is accounting for the numbers that you reeled out just now.
So a new report by the Nigerian financial services market says that only 2.4% of Nigerians earn above the cost of survival, which we have stated clearly earlier. What does this mean for consumer market and economic growth?
Look, I think that when you look at the things that our governments have done over the years and that this administration is also doing, you find that there seems to be a very clear lack of understanding of the things that drive actual, real, inclusive growth and development in our country. This number that you are talking about is damning, and I don't think that we may understand how fundamental and grievous this situation is. A situation where only 1, 2, 3 out of every 100 Nigerians can actually meet their basic needs. That's what this says. That report says that it costs about 160,000 naira per month just to get by, not to thrive, not to live in luxury, not to live comfortably, just to get by. And yet, only 2.4% of Nigerians earn slightly above that. What that means is that consumption, consumer spending is going to be heavily curtailed, heavily reined in, such that all of the other factors of economic development, the things that go into the calculation of your GDP, will be hampered. The consumer spending is the starting point of economic. If people are not buying, food, if people are not renting houses, going to school, buying clothing, taking transportation, buying cars, then there is nothing to build upon with regards to, investment, with regards to government spending and the rest of the part of the GDP equation. So if you have income inequality that is this widespread, you've got a big problem on your hands that you are supposed to pay very deliberate, specific attention towards trying to resolve. So this is not just about, looking for GDP and saying we want our GDP to grow by 5%, or that we want GDP per capita to be a certain number. What is our income distribution, and what percentage of our entire population are contributing to economic development and economic activity and GDP growth? This number is terrible, and it will take some serious attention to fix over the years by the government.
Chupiton, Principal Partner, Woodridge and Scott Consulting, thank you so much for joining us to discuss this.
Thank you.
Now we head outside Nigeria, where at least 68 people have died after a migrant boat carrying mostly Ethiopians sank off the coast of Yemen. The UN's migration agency reported only 12 of the 157 passengers have been rescued, with dozens still missing. The incident occurred near Yemen's Abyan province, a common route for migrant smuggling. Despite Yemen's ongoing conflict, the country remains a key transit point for migrants, especially from Ethiopia, seeking to reach Gulf nations. Security forces are actively recovering bodies. Now, Western leaders have strongly criticized footage showing visibly malnourished Israeli hostages in Gaza, intensifying calls for their immediate release and Red Cross intervention. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas released separate videos of Rom Bralowski and Eviata David, both appearing extremely thin and distressed. Israeli officials accuse Hamas of starving hostages, an allegation that the group denies, citing Gaza's broader humanitarian crisis. The Red Cross expressed alarm and urged access to all remaining hostages, now totaling 49. For more on this, I'm now joined by our senior international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you again. It's unfortunate that we're discussing this very sad situation. Let me ask, what has been the reactions to the videos shared?
You're absolutely right. An extremely sad situation in Gaza. There has been quite a strong reaction from international leaders of the videos of these hostages that were released on Thursday and Saturday. The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, said that he was appalled by the images, adding that all hostages should be released as a mandatory prerequisite for any kind of ceasefire. The French President Emmanuel Macron said Hamas embodies abject cruelty and said that France would work tirelessly to release the hostages. In Tel Aviv, families of the hostages, 49 of which are still in captivity, that you so rightly mentioned, marched on Tel Aviv demanding the release of their relatives, but also demanding that the Israeli government do more to make sure that the hostages or their families that are inside Gaza are recovered and are brought home safely.
Afia Hagen, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us the updates. Again, it's a very sad situation, but we'll see how this turns out. All right, stay tuned for In the Game, where we'll tell you about Nigeria's the Tigers, who cemented the dominance in African women's basketball, and Mr. President awaiting them. We have Udoka on standby, who will be giving us the updates on the sports stories. Udoka, good afternoon. Are you ready to give us the updates on the Tigers? I earlier had Joshua Murai, who's currently waiting for them at the airport, and he was talking about the difference, in the ambience when it comes to welcoming the Tigers and, of course, Super Falcons, as at last week or some weeks ago. What's your take on that, very quickly?
Right, thank you very much, Blessings. You know, in Nigeria, we claim that football is more popular than other sports, and that's what we've gotten to see earlier today with the welcome the Tigresses got at the national airport right there in Abuja. But one thing to note is that we are all waiting to see what Mr. President will do for the Tigress right there when they go visiting in the Aso Rock, talking about them going to see Mr. President in Abuja. But again, we'll get more updates on in the game, which kicks off in a couple of minutes' time.
Definitely. I'll be handing over to you now, Udoka. Remember to send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen, and do also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Many thanks for watching. I'm Blessings Mosugu.